Recently bought a Trafalgar Survival First Aid Kit for some of my longer trips, kayaking, multi-day trips. Previously I'd always used a little car first aid kit, again from Trafalgar, that I had always have in the glove box, which is, as you can see, it's had some use over the time I've had it, but I figured it wasn't quite enough for some of the injuries that I may expect on some of the longer trips. So I bought this. What's turned up is a very robust nylon bag with 3 compartments. I've been doing first aid for probably 45 years. I did my first course at high school in goodness knows when, but yeah, it would have been 40 to 45 years ago, and I've been doing first aid courses ever since. In 2005 I did a remote area first aid course in Western Tasmania with horizontal snow and ice and sleet and all sorts of stuff, and it just gave me such an appreciation of long-term casualty management. I've never looked back. Of all the courses I've done over the years, and I've done a few, the remote area first aid course is probably the most intense and the most rewarding course I've ever done. So I speak from a little bit of authority. I've done this. Incidentally, I was a lifeguard, professional lifeguard for 20 years, and had quite a few, over 10 anyway, emergency resuscitations. So I've done this sort of stuff for a while, so I think I speak from a position of some understanding of the subject. So this fantastic little kit here, the Trafalgar, is basically broken up into 3 compartments, and in the Australian bush what we need to manage for most outdoor activities is either scratch, cuts or punctures, which you want to have some sort of infection control. Sprain, strain, mainly ankles or knees. We're also talking about general soft tissue injuries, bruising and various things like that are mainly internal. Bites and stings. There's lots of nasties in Australia that want to bite you and eat you, and you've got to be able to manage that. Hypothermia or hypothermia. Hypothermia is when you're too hot, and hypothermia is when you're too cold. You want to be able to manage that in the Australian outdoors. As you've seen from my videos, I can be in snow one week and completely dry and quite warm the next week. You also want to be able to manage blisters and all sorts of skin injuries, chafing and things like that, especially with backpacks and hiking boots. And another one is burns. This kit will manage most, if not all, of that. So what I'm looking for in a first aid kit, firstly I want to know what's in it before I go. The last thing you want to be doing is rocking up, someone in your party gets hurt or you yourself get hurt, and you're rummaging through everything and trying to find the bits and pieces that you're going to need to manage that injury straight away. What I'm looking for is a wound dressing, compression and a bandage that I can get that around and immediately stop bleeding. The 2 concepts that I first learnt in the remote area course was keep them breathing and stop them bleeding, and they're the 2 things you want to do in quick succession with any sort of injury. So compress and a bandage to keep it in place, and it's actually a conforming bandage, so it's going to work around areas like ankles, wrists, knees, things like that. Next thing I want to know is, and this is all very well and good, this is a fairly sharp little pair of scissors, a pair of tweezers. Next thing I want to know if I have an instant cold pack. One of the best things for soft tissue injuries is cold, and these is single-use cold pack that you can actually put on and then use other bandaging to keep it in place while you're gradually getting back to your car or or a pickup point. The other thing is a couple of 10 centimetre heavy duty crepe bandages. These are the sorts of things that you need for a snake bite. This is not going to do much for a snake bite, because what you need to do if you were to get bitten on the hand, which is possibly the most common snake bite location, surprisingly, is be able to immobilise up to the first joint, so at least past the wrist. So they're good for that. Actually, I may, for safety's sake, take a couple of extra bandages I've got here and put them in this one, and then I'll just leave this in the car, and then I can move that backwards and forwards. The other one is obviously the most used supply in a first aid kit is Band-Aids. Importantly here is antiseptic cream. I have a mate in Tenterfield who got scratched with a stick on his farm, and went went home, dressed it, didn't worry about it at first, and it got so infected with an infection that couldn't be controlled that he lost his foot and half of his lower leg. So it is actually the quicker you can get antiseptic or disinfectant into a wound, the quicker that can get killed off, and the less likely you are to have problems. I'd probably recommend that we get some other, a little bit broader spectrum of antiseptic, and I'll come back to that in the later part of the video. The other thing here we've got is a resuscitation shield. If members of your family that you know, and you know that they don't have any issues, you probably wouldn't worry about it. But if you come across some people on the trail who need first aid, especially in this COVID time, COVID-19, you'd want to put a resuscitation shield on. You just wouldn't do anything otherwise. Second pouch here is for injury management. Okay, so once you've stopped bleeding, make sure you've got everyone in a safe and comfortable position, and now you can start to treat shock. So you've got a triangular bandage if you need to immobilise joints. This is handy actually for tying a splint, which I'll show in another video in this series. I'm going to grab one of them from the other Trafalgar kit and put that in here. It's always good to have 2 or 3 of those. Have eye pads, eye wash. Can be very debilitating not being able to see if you've had dust or some other contaminant come up in your eyes. Very, very handy. Wash out with the eye wash, then manage the eye so it stays clean and dry with the pad and one of the bandages. We also have a little basic first aid instructions here. If you're at that point that you need to be looking at the book, not knowing what to do, then I suggest you go and get a first aid course under your belt, possibly even a remote area if you have a couple of friends that you want to do that with, or even the family. I can highly recommend that. Very rewarding experience. Another one here is a gauze swab for general cleaning. You can use that. It's a non-stick gauze that if you've stopped the bleeding, things like grazes, cuts and things like that, put that on before you put the bandage around, after you've controlled infection and that stuff. You also have gloves in here. Again, you'd probably want to put that in this section with your resuscitation shield. Again, in a COVID world, we'd want to be doing that. And you've got other little things, handy little things like 2 sizes of safety pins for your triangular bandages to keep them in place if you can't get a knot in there. There's also a number of wound wipes. Antiseptic cream, again you probably need to put that over there. Things like swabs. These are actually, I've always wondered what these were for until I went mountain biking and came off on a dirt road and trying to get out gravel. These are handy for that. And you've also got probes, disposable splinter probes, very, very handy, especially if you're camping and you're mucking around with firewood. The other thing too is there's a couple of sealed Ziploc bags for some of the more industrial injuries like amputations and things when you lose a finger with a chainsaw or any sort of saw or an axe. You want to be able to pick that finger up. I know this may be a little graphical for some people, but you want to be able to put it in a clean, dry bag, and almost every first aid kit I've ever had has had that in it. And now the other thing we have here is an instant hot pack. When I mentioned before hyper and hypothermia, having an instant hot pack is fantastic, up to 43 degrees. And that in conjunction with a thermal rescue blanket, or a space blanket as we used to call them, to keep people warm, especially in the cold environments, back country or even front country skiing. Every single first aid kit's got that in it. The other thing too is a lot of people may not know is the ability for these to keep someone cool, because they're actually made of a reflective film. I won't open it. What that does is reflect sunlight beautifully, and you can actually use it to, if in extreme cases, to help people keep cool. That's not it for this kit. What we have here is peripheral stuff. There's a torch. Wow, it actually works. And the other thing that's really, really impressive, it has a charge. The ability to charge. So if your batteries have gone flat, you just recharge them by your own effort, and off you go. That's fantastic. Love that feature. And you also have tape. That's the other thing. The problem with keeping these on sometimes is having to do tricky knots and tucks and various things. There's no closures here. There's no butterfly, those little grab ones like in the old first aid kits. You just simply get some tape out and you'd wind it around 2 or 3 times and stick it to itself. And then there's this little object here. It's a whistle. Doesn't work very well. Okay, you got to put a bit of effort into it. It's a whistle for attracting attention. I feel like someone on a plane. All right, now we'll have a look at, I'll trick it up and we'll come back to you and see what it looks like with what I believe to be the ultimate in the type of activities I do in the bush. Okay, I've pretty much taken everything that I needed out of this Trafalgar first aid kit and whacked it in here. Total net gain about 110 grams, probably 115 grams. Total net gain in volume, I've probably gathered about, I don't know, three-quarters of a litre, maybe actually probably over a litre in volume. So let's have a quick look at what I've come up with. So what I might do is turn it around this way because the zips are down this end. I've made some fundamental changes to the straight up arrangement. First is gloves and resus shield, so I can get those on and look after myself and my safety first. Second, if I've got a situation that requires immediate resuscitation, I've got the stuff there, or immediate stopping of bleeding. Even in the case of an amputation, I can get this wound dressing and pull this out and throw that on to stop bleeding. What I do then is go into this pouch here, and I've got a whole lot of other options for immediate injury management. A couple of triangular bandages that I can use and gauze swabs that I can put straight on the wound and stop bleeding straight away. I've also got the backup of it with the snake bite. I can do that and get the heavy duty bandages on and start immobilising the wound and the joint. I managed to salvage these. I was thinking twice about using these from the old kit because they haven't got a use by date, but then I read sterile unless packaged, opened or damaged. So these are sterile until you open them. So in 50 years time, providing the packaging hasn't been damaged and this hasn't in any way, they're going to be good. So I wouldn't throw old ones out if they look okay. I have more bandages, and I've got the wound dressing I was talking about earlier and showed you, the antiseptic creams. So this is to manage an injury immediately. Then we can go into longer term management with wound wipes, eye pads and spare triangular bandages. We've got the cold and the hot pack here, the more recent band-aids or plastic strips. What I will do, I'll actually find from my big trauma kit, which is my old professional kit, I'll have some cloth band-aids. I'll use those. I've also got the management stuff in here that can all be zipped away, and what I've done is put in the final pouch over here. That's crazy. These zips go from there to there. This one goes from there to here. Anyway, so I've got the torch, I've got a spare face shield and the first aid instructions there, and the tape and the bags. So I just sort of move that stuff over there. So that's how I've set up my kit. I'll just pack it all away and show you the final result. So like I said, not a big weight gain, bit of a volume gain, but I'm more than happy to take that gain if it's going to mean that I can get what I need when I need it. What I'll also do, like I now know my kit, but I'll also make sure that everyone in my party or the parties I go out with knows this kit and where to find everything. It's just a quick conversation at the trailhead and say, hey, I just want to quickly show you my first aid kit. If you need it, here it is, or if I need it, here it is. If you have any, if you have any issues, let's discuss it. But it's also good to know if people in your party are prepared to offer first aid. There's some people who are quite squeamish, and you probably want to know who they are before you go too far. I've worked with lifeguards at swimming pools and beaches who have been the biggest, toughest guys, can swim from here to New Zealand and back, but couldn't handle sight of blood or couldn't handle vomit. One of the first things that resuscitated people do quite often is spill their guts when you've resuscitated them. It's quite funny if it weren't so serious. You're seeing a guy resuscitating and then he gets vomited on and then just loses his bickies. Funny. Anyway, there we have the Trafalgar first aid, outdoors first aid kit. This is the beginning of a series. I'm going to show you how to manage some wounds moving forward, and I hope you stick around, and please subscribe. It's very important to me that you subscribe, that you can find out when the next updates are coming out and all the other playlists I've got. Thanks for watching.